Alright, second video time. For my first video on this channel, I checked out an artist I wasn't a fan of before to see if I could become a fan. But for this second one, I'm going to be doing something more comfortable. I'll be looking at every album by the Canadian thrash metal band Sacrifice, giving my thoughts on each one, talking about what I liked and maybe what I didn't like, and then ranking each one of them to find out which was my favourite and which was my least favourite. As I stated earlier, the topic of this video is more comfortable territory, and what I mean by this is that it is a band that I'm already familiar with in a genre that I'm very familiar with, and therefore it's going to be quite different than going into something completely new, blind and not really knowing much. That being said, I haven't actually gone through and properly reviewed each of their albums before now, so there is that. That's pretty much the whole intro section out of the way, so I'll just go ahead and look at the first album. Sacrifice's debut album, Tormented Fire from 1986, is a fantastically exhilarating and impactful project with some incredible songs and hardly any dips in qualities to be found. Even the weakest tracks here are still great, and while I did have a few criticisms here and there, they weren't really anything major in the grand scheme of things. The production sounds great, riffs are generally really fun, vocals sound really cool, and it's just a fun time from beginning to end. My favourite track from this album was between Turn in Your Grave, Burned at the Stake, and Beyond Death. These are all amazing thrash songs with so many cool ideas and moments. Turn on Your Grave for its interesting progressions, great riffs, and fun tempo changes. Burned at the Stake has this really cool moment at the beginning where it's this really deep and fuzzy sound which builds up a great atmosphere and feels really unique, making this song stand out from the rest and makes for a really nice change of pace on this project. Beyond Death is also just a fantastic song all around, with some really cool moments, like a part at the beginning where it's just the drums playing and then all the other instruments get slowly added in. The progression here is really fun and engaging. Now we'll look at each track individually so I can explain my thoughts in depth. We start with The Awakening, a short intro track with a noisy and chaotic feel that really creates excitement for the listening experience ahead. I felt like the vocal effects used here were a little cheesy for me, but they weren't bad or anything. Next up is the song named after the band. The vocals on Sacrifice are intense and fun. These raspy screams feel great. The drums are relentless, and I really loved that. This track had me headbanging from like start to finish, just the whole time, having just a really fun experience with it. Then there's Turn in Your Grave, which I mentioned before. Something I felt like it was worth mentioning was how for the intro of this song, it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Four Horsemen by Metallica. And I also wanted to mention this really cool, impactful, and interesting played bass part during that intro. Really cool stuff. Homicidal Breath has a sound and structure that really reminded me of a Slayer track. Especially something like Raining Blood. The vocals here sound almost animalistic at times, and it's a track I really enjoyed. Warrior of Death has this intense speed I really appreciated, but I think the lyrical content here could have been improved. It feels a little too basic and cheesy at times for me. It's not a big deal, it did lower my score for this song a little bit. There are some amazing drum fills on the next track, Infernal Visions. I also really enjoyed these guitar riffs, and the slight tempo changes found throughout the song are really great. They do a good job of keeping things interesting, and I really like that. Burned at the Stake is another one I mentioned earlier. It's a slow build-up during the intro was fantastic. The slow and menacing groove feels so cool, and the vocals here feel much more deep and growly compared to the previous songs here. It's a really cool switch up. The sudden speed up near the end is fun too. I think that adds a lot to the song. Necronomicon has this reverb on the drums which really stood out to me for how cool it makes them sound here. Although otherwise it's a fairly typical track for this project. Then there's The Exorcism, an instrumental track which does have a really nice instrumental, but it feels like it could have been better if there were vocals. Like the song is just missing a little something, as the instrumental by itself doesn't really do enough to keep me fully engaged. It feels like there should have been vocals, but there weren't, and it's a little off because of that. Possession has this really cool transition from the last track. They flow together very well, and the guitar solo in this one really reminded me of Slayer. The panning vocals on Decapitation are a really cool addition, and it has a great speed and energy to it. And then we finish the album with Beyond Death, another one I mentioned before, so I already said a couple things I liked about it, but I'll mention a couple more now. There was a part where the song slows down a little with a really Slayer-like guitar solo that I absolutely loved, and it also has this really cool atmospheric outro which serves as like the perfect ending to this whole listening experience. My least favorite track was probably The Exorcism, the instrumental track which I described earlier. It's actually very good, but it is the weakest out of the bunch, at least in my opinion. Overall, though, this album is really great. I loved so many of these songs, and it's just a blast to listen to. This is a really fun, classic thrash project with some amazing highlights. And while not every track here is perfect, it's still such a strong listening experience. It's an amazing first album for this band. I have very few complaints about it. Personally, I'd give this a 9.6 out of 10. Forward to Termination from 1987, just a year after their debut, by the way, which is crazy, is absolute thrash perfection. It has this incredible songwriting, great production, cool vocals, amazing vibe. It feels cohesive and is so much fun to listen to. My favourite track from this project was definitely Flames of Armageddon, a really interesting and engaging song from a structure and songwriting perspective. There are some really cool drum moments here, and it has a slightly slower, more menacing vibe to it compared to other tracks from this project, which I really liked. It feels like a really good change of pace for the album, and the guitar playing here is excellent, and all around it was just really cool. The title track for this project is actually the intro, being another short interlude-style track, which isn't really a full song on its own. It does do a perfect job of building excitement for the album, though, and I love the guitar tone here. It sounds metallic, for a lack of better description, and it's just really cool. Terror Strikes has a seamless transition from the intro. The rising guitar riff sounds great and energetic. There's a slower part around halfway through which sounds so fantastic and impactful. And the riffs here are great. This track also sets the tone for the album and does so perfectly. It's a really amazing first full song. Reanimation has this slow, dramatic build during the intro that sounds so cool. The opening riff is really fun and energetic, and it has these great raspy vocals that I enjoyed a lot. The drum intro for Afterlife sounds really impactful and fun. The intro riff builds up the track perfectly, the song structure is really interesting and cool, and the guitar solo here sounds amazing. Flames of Armageddon was the one I mentioned before as my favourite for a variety of different reasons, like how the drum beat and start-stop sort of guitar riff during the intro makes for a very different vibe and helps this song stand out. The drum fills are excellent, the vibes are great, the songwriting is incredible, the guitar playing is so good, and there's this moment around the middle of the song where there's this like drumless section which is really cool and unique for this album. It's made it stand out a lot and is a really memorable moment of this listening experience. Up next is The Entity with its sort of menacing and powerful vibes. It has great drums, a really cool instrumental switch up near the end, and a fun sort of Lovecraftian theme, which I really enjoyed. Forever Enslaved has some really cool, dark lyrical content, and the theming here is just fantastic, and it's just generally a really great track. Light at the End has generally engaging and exciting songwriting, as well as interesting progressions. Pyrokinesis is the last song on this album, and it's simple and short, but sweet. And while the chorus is a little basic, it does work very well for what the song is trying to do. You know, it's trying to just be like a simple and fun song. It's not trying to like be a big, complicated, like intricate, like masterpiece. It's just trying to be fun, and it achieves that perfectly. Every single song here was just so good, and they're all basically perfect in my eyes. I don't really know if I can pick a least favorite when they're all just equally amazing. Overall, this album is so good. From start to finish, I was having a blast listening to it, and by the end, I really didn't have any complaints about it. This is a classic thrash masterpiece, which deserves a lot more love in my opinion. It's an incredible second album from this band. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Soldiers of Misfortune from 1990 is their most technical and experimental album so far. It's an absolute masterpiece with so many amazing songs and not a single dip in quality to be found. This is a fantastic listening experience from beginning to end, and I loved every second of it. Each song here feels like it has its own unique and distinct identity and vibe. None of them ever feel like they're too similar to one another. The sound on this project is just really interesting and creative. My favourite song from this album was definitely Truth After the Rain. An insanely good 10-minute long tech thrash masterpiece with so many amazing moments during that runtime. I wouldn't even be able to count them all if I tried. It's such a great track. The guitar riffs here are incredible, the drums sound amazing, the solos are just so good, and the ending feels like a perfect way to close the album as a whole. The vibes here are just beyond amazing. With that said, there may be a clear favourite, but the other songs on this project are by no means lesser than it. So let's talk about the rest of the album's track list as well. We open with As the World Burns, a track with fantastic songwriting, interesting engaging progressions, technical and really cool riffs, impactful vocals, impactful drums as well. The energy build towards the end of this song is incredible, a really noteworthy moment for this album, and this track had me constantly headbanging. It was just so much fun. Then there's the title track, which has this dark, sort of bass-centric intro, which feels really cool and has an interesting vibe to it. I love the clean guitar picks that go along with it. It's very different from what the band have done before this. The build and intensity over the course of this song is great. There's a slower groove that feels really impactful, and I love how it gradually increases in speed over time. In Defiance has a very different feel compared to the other tracks here so far. It has really engaging and interesting songwriting, great riffs, powerful drums, and a great speed and energy to it. It's amazing stuff all around, really. Existence Within Eternity is the next song, and it has a really cool intro that builds up the energy very well, and it feels really engaging to listen to. The raspy vocals heard on this track are especially excellent, and there are great uses of moments of silence on this track, which create a really impactful feeling. Then we have Pawn of Prophecy, which has some really great riffs and an insanely fast intro. The speed here is great. There are some really cool, intricate moments here, and the energy is fantastic. Lost Through Time has really engaging songwriting, really cool switch-ups and progressions, very fun guitar riffs, an awesome guitar solo, and there was this really groovy riff near the end of the song, which was so much fun to listen to. I loved it. A Storm in the Silence is a song with a sort of really erratic songwriting, which sounds extremely cool. It feels very energetic and exciting. Then we finally end with Truth After the Rain, which I spoke about earlier, but I will now talk about again in even more detail. The slow, dramatic intro for this track is fantastic. The stopping, starting first guitar riff sounds so cool and heavy. I love the drums, especially during the beginning. The first guitar solo was really cool. The riffing here is really technical and interesting. The constant switch-ups are engaging and keep things fun and different. The tempo changes are done really well. The riffs and solos at around 4 minutes 30 are insanely good. There's also an instrumental moment around halfway through the track which sounds amazing, and the build up towards the end is incredibly satisfying to listen to. Then there's the outro, which is really interesting and chill. It's kind of like very atmospheric and almost like relaxing. It's very interesting, which, as I said earlier, feels like a really fitting and nice ending to the album. Overall, this album is a masterpiece. It's perfect in every way, and I love everything about it. I think this is the best Sacrifice album up to this point in the discography, even though this and the previous release were both incredible in their own ways. An absolute blast to listen to with nothing for me to criticize or complain about. This album is perfection, in my opinion, as you know, all of these are just my opinion after all. And it goes without saying, there's a disclaimer at the beginning of the video in case you missed that. All my opinion, but anyway, I think it's perfect, and I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Apocalypse Inside, released in 1993, is a pretty amazing thrash album for a classic band in the 90s. If you know anything about the history of thrash metal, then you probably know that the genre practically died out in the 90s when all of the big classic thrash bands kind of just decided to stop making thrash albums and went in like different directions for a while. I wouldn't call it a perfect project. It's really good, but there were a few things I had to criticize about it. The production feels good here. I love the vocals as always. There are some really great riffs. There are some amazing songs on this album, but there are a couple of weak points as well. My favourite song from this album was definitely the title track. It has some incredible songwriting with really cool transitions between different sections of the song. The riffs are great, and the vocals feel very intense, which I really enjoyed. All around an amazing track. This album opens with My Eyes See Red, a track with a good build-up and that establishes an atmosphere for the project as a whole. It's a really good intro. Then there's the title track, which I mentioned just a minute ago, and the third song is Flesh, which has a slow and kind of menacing intro, which feels really cool. Some transitions between sections don't feel as smooth as they could have been, but the speed up towards the end is pretty fun. The track Salvation has some very cool riffs, and the drums here sound really nice. Then there's a switch up around the halfway point, which feels really cool and groovy. It's a really great song. Beneath What You See has a really cool high-pitched distorted guitar playing at the beginning of the song. The bass here is very good. The riffs could have been a little more impactful though, and in my opinion, the song does drag a little towards the end. Next is Incarcerated, which has a really cool build-up intro. The intensity and energy on this track is really fun. There's a slower section near the end which has a really cool atmosphere that I wanted to mention, and also a drumming part at around 4 minutes 20, which is really good. The melodic guitar during the opening of Ruins of the Old is really cool. I love the vibes here and how this song kind of like stands out from the rest of the track list. The guitar solo here was also great. I didn't have a lot to say about The Lost, but I did really like this guitar solo near the beginning of the track, which goes really well together with the technical riff that plays alongside it. It's really cool stuff. Finally, we end with Freedom Slave, a generally very fun and energetic song, although it doesn't really do a lot to stand out from the rest of the songs on this project, and I didn't find it to be as memorable personally. My least favourite track from this release was Beneath What You See, which is a still pretty great song all things considered, but while it did have some really cool bass and some great usage of distortion on the guitar, I felt like the riffs on this one could have been a little more interesting and impactful, and that the song, again, as I said earlier, it did start to drag a little towards the end. Overall though, this is a great album, full of bangers, and while they're not all perfect 10 out of 10 songs, I still think they're all very good. Sure, there were a few things here I felt that they could have been a little bit improved, but the issues I had with this album were minor things, really, and didn't take away from the good stuff that this album has to offer, which is a lot of good stuff. I really enjoyed listening to this project. Personally, I'd give it a 9.4 out of 10. Man, the band is really on a roll here. I mean, sure, not every album is perfect so far, but they're all genuinely amazing. I'm giving out nothing but very high ratings so far, so I'm pretty happy. Alright, time for the next album. Usually they take like 3 or so years to put out a new project, so I'm guessing like the next one will be like probably like released in like 1996. Okay, so the band died. Apparently they just decided to split up after that last album and didn't get back together until like 15 years later, finally releasing their comeback album in 2009 titled The Ones I Condemn. The real question is, was the comeback a success? Was this as good as the good old days? Personally, I think so. This is a fantastic comeback album. There aren't even any like signs that they haven't done this in a long time. The band kicked things off amazingly well with an incredible project that feels just as good as some of their best older material. The guitars sound fantastic, the riffs are excellent, the drumming is always great, the vocals sound amazing and intense. Every element here just comes together perfectly in my opinion. My favourite track from this album was probably Desolation Alive, a highly engaging ending song for this album with great riffs, cool progressions, good lyrical content, powerful vocal deliveries, and is generally an amazing thrash song. Other highlights here for me include We Will Prevail, the title track, The Great Wall, Tetragrammaton, Hiroshima, and Ultimate Power Corrupts. All incredible songs too. Speaking of We Will Prevail, that's the opening track for this project, and it's a great introduction. It has a good energy, it builds anticipation very well, and it has a really cool switch up towards the end. Then there's the title track with some really powerful riffs, great drums, and very impactful vocal deliveries. Give Me Justice has a really cool guitar solo, the riffs are a lot of fun, and I love the vocals here. The Great Wall has some really cool lyrical content, good riffs, a good energy, and a really nice guitar solo. The song's structure is fantastic, and I love how it progresses. Tetragrammaton is a great change of pace for this album. I love its cool, atmospheric intro, great first riff, a cool build-up of energy. At first it feels slow, but really powerful, and then it speeds up towards the end in a really cool way. There's also this amazing moment towards the end where the guitar sounds really plucky and almost glitchy in a way. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but I loved how it sounded. The intro for Atrocity has a really cool, intricate riff, and I really like the energy in the drums here. The next song is Hiroshima. This track's lyrical content stood out to me for its serious and dark themes. I really like the riffs here, and the song in general has a very good energy to it. The Devil's Martyr has a great energy and speed. There were also some really cool effects used that I heard during the guitar solo. Ultimate Power Corrupts has especially powerful sounding vocals and some really cool guitar riffs. Then we finish the album with Desolation Alive, which I already discussed earlier for its great riffs, cool progressions, good lyrical content, and powerful vocal deliveries. But also, it's just a highly engaging track and a great ending for this album. Overall, this is the perfect comeback album for a classic thrash band like Sacrifice. They show here that they haven't lost the ability to put out some truly intense and enjoyable metal. And personally, I just had an absolute blast listening to it. No complaints for me. Another 10 out of 10 album for Sacrifice. After a long break, the band are finally back, and I'm sure we don't have to worry about another long hiatus between albums ever again. "16 years later, we finally got the next Sacrifice album. Volume 6, released in 2025, is full of intense and fun thrash songs that bring the energy and power that I love about this band's older material, but I don't think it's a flawless release. I think my favourite track on this project is between Comatose and Black Hashish. Comatose being the perfect opening track for an album like this, and Black Hashish being an excellent instrumental-only song with some really beautiful songwriting. Some of my other highlights were Antidote of Poison, Missile, Incoming Mass Extinction, and Lunar Eclipse. As mentioned before, Comatose is the opening song here, and it's amazing. I love the energy and the speed here, and the vocals still sound powerful in this album despite how many years the band has been around for. Antidote of Poison has a really cool riff heard during the intro and has a really great groove to it that I enjoyed a lot. Missile has this really fun and powerful sounding galloping riff. It brings a lot of energy to the track, and the vocals here sound great. Underneath Millennia has some really cool and impactful drums at the beginning, but personally, I didn't find the song's progression to be as engaging as the better tracks on this album. And some of these transitions between the different sections of the track feel a little jarring at times. I think it's still a pretty great song, but there were some areas I felt could have been improved. Although there was a really fun, jumpy sort of riff towards the end that I liked a lot. The riffs on Your Hunger for War are great, and it has a cool usage of reverb on the drums during the outro, which was really interesting. But the lyrical content here can feel a little clunky at times in my opinion. Incoming Mass Extinction has a really cool riff during the intro, and a good amount of energy throughout. I also really like the effects on the vocals on this track. Lunar Eclipse has a cool, powerful, and intense vibe to it that made it really stand out. It's a great instrumental track and a nice change of pace for the album. The guitar solo is amazing, and this song is kind of a short but sweet situation. The song Explode has a very cool, energetic beginning which lives up to the title, but the slower section around the middle didn't hit as hard for me as it could have, although it is still pretty cool. Personally, I think the songwriting here could have been a little more engaging. Then there's Black Hashish, which has a really cool atmospheric intro, which feels like a nice change of pace. The background vocals found here are really interesting and add a lot to the vibe. There's a great slow build up that feels really engaging. The guitar solo just after the intro is fantastic. The song sounds menacing and impactful. The transitions between the loud and quiet sections of the song are great, and it's generally an amazing instrumental piece. After that is the very fun and energetic We Will Not Survive, which isn't as strong as some of the other tracks here, but I think it's still really good, just not as good. Finally, we end on a cover of the direct action song Trapped in a World. I won't lie, I'm not at all familiar with the band or this original song. I just haven't heard of them before, so my only experience with this track is through this cover. And I think it sounds really good actually. The riffs and drums are cool, the vocals are quite different from the rest of the album, and while there were a couple of moments where I wasn't fully vibing with the different style of vocals, I think they were mostly very good. My least favourite song on here was Underneath Millennia, which was still a very enjoyable song to listen to, but something about the songwriting for this one just didn't match the incredibly high quality of the rest of the album. Overall, this is a fantastic listening experience that I had a great time with. It's not perfect, but I think it absolutely deserves the score that I've decided upon. Sacrifice is still making amazing thrash metal material after all these years. Although, I really hope the next one doesn't take quite as long to make. Anyway, I'd give this album a 9.3 out of 10. And that's every Sacrifice album covered. They were all actually pretty amazing. I really liked all of them, some a little more than others, but the general level of quality across the band's discography is really high if you ask me. Here's the ratings displayed on a graph for anyone who's interested in that stuff. Yep, very cool. And that's basically the video done. Sacrifice is a fantastic thrash metal band that often gets overlooked in favor of the obvious picks like the Big 8 or the German Big 4 or whatever else, but I think they have a lot to offer, and some of their music is up there with those iconic bands in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, you can also check out my other one, which was about Taylor Swift, something entirely different to this, but I put a lot of effort into that video, so give it a watch if you're interested. I also have another YouTube channel where I post my own music that I make, which is also available on streaming services like Spotify and YouTube Music. If you really want to find some more reviews by me, I have an Album of the Year profile where I post written reviews. I don't go into as much detail there as I do in the videos, but there are a lot of reviews to read if you're interested, including written reviews for all of the albums discussed in this video. Now that I'm done relentlessly advertising to you, the video is basically over. See you next time.